already. Thank you. Okay, so I have a PowerPoint presentation. And as you all, I think, are aware, it's budget planning season. Hooray! Let's see. Two, there we go. Okay, so to refresh your memory on the kind of schedule that we do every year of budget planning, in July we have a city arts team meeting where we start brainstorming project ideas. And then in August, we have the AC3 meeting where we hear those ideas and give feedback, discuss feedback on them, and brainstorm additional project ideas. In September, there's another CAT meeting to further discuss, recommend a decision. And then in October, we have the AC3 meeting where we further discuss and recommend a decision. So this is today's step. So today's meeting, I'm going to do an overview of past allocations, then give you the estimate of funding for next fiscal year, and then share the CAT project ideas that came up last month. And then we can discuss feedback on those ideas as we're talking about them. And then we'll open it up to brainstorm additional project ideas. And as a reminder, this is, our big decision. One of our big decisions is the split between operating and capital for that funding for next fiscal year. In other words, how much will we spend on non-capital art, arts education, literary arts, performing arts, visual art, and how much should we spend on capital art, meaning permanent physical art, so murals and sculpture. But of course, to get to that idea of how much we're splitting, what the split is, it's easiest to talk about those project ideas. So we get an idea of what we really want to prioritize for spending, and that kind of informs the decision on the split. So the goal for today is to again give feedback on those preliminary CAT project ideas, and then brainstorm, throw some ideas in the mix. So here is a general overview on past allocations of percent for the arts. So we've had, starting in fiscal year 21-22 up till this last fiscal year, we had a total of $1.351 million. And I'm going to briefly go through the projects that,
Hello.
sorry, was there a question? Okay, maybe not. Okay. I'm going to briefly go through the projects that we've allocated funding to refresh your memory in the next three slides. So first, we had My Rochester, the murals program for $100,000 that funded 4 murals. Locus Focus, the Mosaic program for 100,000, which is in progress. We're hoping to do installation in the spring. $125,000 is going to the City and County Arts and Culture Plan, and that's being supplemented by funding from the county as well as Farish Foundation and Rochester Area Community Foundation. And then $250,000 for Centering Youth, which, as some of you may remember, is the project that has at its core addressing and discussing youth trauma and ways to really address or discuss youth trauma through art. Arts Bloom Round 1, we had $100,000 going to 6 awardees. Round 2 of Arts Bloom, we had $170,000 going to 9 awardees. And in that RFP, we gave bonus points for youth programming or projects that had a youth component. And that just wrapped up that year. And now we're going into the year, which is Arts Bloom Round 3, in which we said $25,000 of the 100,000 would be reserved for programming at our centers. And that we just awarded 8 awardees with that funding. I will follow up with you to get you the announcement of the awardees from that round. And then you also may remember How We Rock was the photography program that Ray from our communications bureau managed, in which local photographers were given a stipend to photograph local festivals and events, which culminated in a show here at the City Link Gallery. And then last year, we decided to spend 190,000 on the City Fleet Vehicle Art Project. I just caught a typo. It's not project, it's project. Sorry. Um, and so we are in discussion on really developing the concept for that now, and I'll keep you posted on that as it progresses. And then we also have made the decision a couple years ago to ensure that we always have 10% of our whatever we have spent on capital art set aside for public art maintenance. So right now we have an intended $89,700 for public art maintenance. And then we have what's left over is $117,000, 117, a little over $117,000 in unprogrammed capital funding. So what we have in the estimate for next fiscal year, so 26, 27, for percent for the arts funding is $201,000, which is less than it has been in years. And a big part of that is, as you all may remember, Percent for the Arts is based on a calculation off of the city's capital program. So it has to do with however much money we have in our capital budget. It's going to impact how much money we have for Percent for the Arts. We have less money in our capital budget for the fiscal year, largely because ARPA funding kind of inflated our capital budget for a couple years, and that we kind of have reached that ARPA cliff, and now we don't have that funding to kind of inflate our capital budget as much as it was before. So we have less funding this year. However, we do have that $117,000 in unprogrammed capital funding, as well as the public art maintenance funding. So in total, we have over $400,000 that we could be talking about this season. At the very least, we need to make a decision on that $201,000, but we could also be talking about the other funding in this table. Any questions about any of that before I move on?
Does the 117, does that have to go to capital projects?
It does.
Okay.
It does. That is one of the challenges when we have something marked as operating funding, it needs to be spent within that fiscal year. And so the nice thing about capital funding is it rolls over.
Is there a list of capital maintenance that has to be required with estimates of costs?
So we don't have that right now, but I'm going to reference something. Well, what we've done so far to kind of go towards that is we're working on a public art inventory. We already have an inventory of city public art, but we're also adding to that. And as part of that inventory, we had some folks do field work and do kind of a preliminary conditions assessment. So we have that, but we don't have an assessment of how much it's going to cost, right? And so I think that's a good segue to the next slide. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the project ideas that City Arts team discussed, brainstormed last month, starting with the potential for public art maintenance or restoration projects. So the first thing that came up was the intersection of Park and Berkeley formerly had crosswalks painted for Pride. And when the street was repaved, as it was recently, that went away. And DES, Department of Environmental Services, wanted to repaint those crosswalks. The county is now saying that it's not to transportation guidelines, county or state transportation guidelines, but they are okay with a painting in the center of the intersection. So a potential project is basically replacing the Pride crosswalks with a street painting at that intersection, which we're estimating to be about $5,000. as much as possible as we're going through this process, I want to try to estimate project costs so that we have a better idea when we're talking about these things. So I'm working on I'm not going to have estimates for all of these things, but I'm starting to get them, and that can kind of help feed into our discussion. The other idea for replacement or restoration or maintenance was Art Walk, of course, right? This is a topic that's come up a few times. There are quite a few projects as part of Art Walk that are deteriorating. And so that has been we've been in conversation about that a couple years. One of the ideas that has come up in discussion is the potential to actually use Percent for the Arts funding to do a formal assessment of, Hillary, to your point, the cost of the maintenance needs for those pieces that are part of Art Walk. And then in a follow-up conversation, what would it take to actually do an assessment of maintenance needs cost-wise for potentially all public art on city-owned property in the city? And could we use Percent for the Arts funding for that? What would that look like? Again, I don't have an estimate on that yet, but any comments or questions or discussion on these project ideas?
Yeah. And this doesn't need to be a discussion right now, but just a little asterisk about the Art Walk installations. That's, I think, a broader or deeper conversation about the ownership of those. I think I brought this up before. I'm not sure if I haven't. That, technically Art Walk still owns those things, and we're trying to we're trying to have the city own that artwork. So I think that in this discussion of restoration of those installations, we do need to figure out how do we get toward the goal of the city owning those things. Because in a sense, Art Walk really isn't around anymore. I mean, the organization. And so it just doesn't make sense for us to be owning that. And so anyway, it's just a broader discussion. We don't have to have the discussion right now. I'm just putting that in there as part of this information around the restoration of Art Walk sculptures.
Thomas, I have a question about that. Do you happen to know if there is a sort of complete database of all of the installations that are considered to be part of Art Walk that would help facilitate that conversation?
Yes, I actually will ask Doug for that. I think we do have that. I'm actually pretty sure we have that. I'm not, yeah, we have that.
Okay.
I'll get that information.
Yes,
Yeah,
we have
thank you.
that.
That would be
We
so
definitely have
helpful.
that.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
You're right.
Thanks.
Heather, my question, and I dropped it in the chat, was, has the city actually started earmarking arts funding from different departments as it goes around the city of Rochester? Because I would want to make sure that we're being fair and equitable in our distribution of these funds. And it's hard to tell where we should focus on putting this money if we don't know what neighborhoods are already getting arts money. I know that was part of the 2034 plan, and we had talked about it with the city, with Rock Arts United a few years ago. I just don't know if that's progressed at all, and if we can have any access to that kind of information before we commit to where we're going to put this money.
Yeah, so we have the arts tracker map, arts funding tracker map that we just recently updated that shows all city public art spending, arts and culture spending, because it includes special events as well, since 2016. Let's see. Kevin or Prateeksha, can you drop the link for that in the chat? Because I'm sharing screen, I can't access the chat.
Yeah, I just added it.
Thank you. I think that's what addresses your question, Amanda. Yeah? Okay. Excellent.
And just a couple of points on that. And Amanda, thank you for bringing that up. In addition to our commitment to update that annually, we are also going through the process as part of the Arts and Culture Plan to do a little bit of a deeper dive and kind of on the analysis side of things. Like, you can take a look at that map and kind of get a sense of things and click on some things and learn some. But we're also doing an analysis as part of the plan to better understand where some of those gaps are, You can visually see it now, but we can quantify it a little bit better through the analysis that we're going to do in the plan. So there'll be a little bit more of a interesting story to come out of that in the draft plan.
Yeah, I hope it's not getting too ahead of ourselves, but what we're looking at with designing local is doing like a 15-minute map. So understanding, seeing how many residents, what percentage of residents are within 15 minutes of public art. So we can see where residents don't really have easy walkable access to art and where they do.
Um, have we gotten an update from Designing Local in the last month or two? Did I miss
So
that meeting?
no, I've been meaning to email the steering committee, which is most of you, right? It's taking longer to complete the draft than we had projected. So um, we'll keep you better posted moving forward.
I would really like to have some of that information before we commit to this. Like, is there a possibility that we would have access to that information before we commit to distributing this money? Or is that the kind of thing that would apply to 2027 money?
It's feasible. We might have it before, 'cause our final decision is for October. So there's a potential that we could have access to that before.
Or being a dyslexic who failed at math, I kind of am a data wonk. So I do like having the information before the money goes out.
Makes sense.
Yeah, there is a chance that it won't be available until next year. But if in that situation, we still can get a glimpse using this public art tracker map again to kind of get a general sense of areas that really could use some more public art.
Okay. Any
And then
other?
my question is, when you're talking about the restoration of art walk installations,
Mhm.
like, does ownership matter in this conversation? Who owns the land, who owns the space, who owns the art?
Well,
I feel
can I
like-
answer that?
Yeah.
Yeah, in this situation, I think it does because Art Walk, the institution, the organization is in a sense not there anymore. And so ongoing, 20 years from now, 30 years now, somebody else is going to need to own that artwork that's on the street. And so, yeah, I think it's as part of this talk about maintenance, I think, and we've kind of been going around this for some years already, but I think we need to make some decision about who's going to own this going forward, who's going to own that sculptures and the whatever. I think the bus, if my memory is correct, I think the bus stops, the bus stops, yeah. I think they revert back to RTS and after so many years, and so we could have reached that already. I can't remember, but it's good to get this cleared up, I think. And since we're going to be talking about the maintenance anyway, I just think it's good to clear up
Yeah.
Well,
this.
we've been categorizing maintenance under capital funding, and all of the capital funding must be on public property, correct? Am I screwing that up? Correct.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
The
they would
property
have
is-
to be owned by the city in order for the city to maintain them, is my understanding. No, but that's like why we can't maintain the wall therapy murals, for example, because they're on privately owned property.
It's a good
Okay.
point.
Correct.
But the property actually is owned by the city, I think, in almost every.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a sort of, anyways, I don't want to go into all of it now, but it was a kind of special situation. So, yeah. And then for many years, Art Walk maintained those sculptures and everything. But anyway, it's probably a longer discussion than we can
And I
do.
don't know if it's a conversation for anybody at the city, but would the city be interested in an MOU that says they're buying the art for $1
So
in
this
order to
is
maintain it? Sorry.
there's
Yes.
there's been internal discussions about this already with some folks, and Kevin and I kind of need to get up to speed with, because this has been an ongoing discussion internally, and we're not sure. I don't think anyone's landed at a conclusion, but we need to kind of key into that discussion and understand what discussion has been had. But it is the artwork is a little bit different than the wall therapy work in that it's in the public right of way. So it's already on city-owned property. It really does come down more to ownership. And I do agree that I don't know that we would want to maintain something that we're also not taking ownership of so that we could ensure that we could continue to be good stewards for the art, right? But yeah,
I think Heather, I so since I was the person in DES that's been asked to look into some of the art walk, it sounds like maybe I should check in with Thomas and anyone else from Art Walk, and maybe we can start that conversation separately, because I think it's, we would like to make sure that it's maintained well. A lot of things are in the right of way, but I think it sounds like there's some ownership issues that we need to work out, which I didn't realize that was an issue. So, Thomas, would you be the right person
We
to talk
definitely have
to?
to bring Doug. We definitely have to bring Doug in this conversation.
Okay, all right. So maybe I can set something up with Thomas and Sean and Doug, and we'll kind of go from there on the ownership piece of it. That makes
Alan,
sense.
if you want to ask, if you want to include me on that, because
Yes, please.
there will be some issues.
Legal issues,
yeah.
maybe.
I do have some history with it as well.
I definitely would like to include you.
Yes, you
Joanna. Thank you.
Well, and I would just say too, again, you sound like you guys are going to figure it out, but depending on how that goes, there needs to be a conversation within this group about a standard allocation then for that maintenance ongoing, because I don't assume that's something the city already has in their budget. So I just want to bookmark that for future conversations based on what law and DES determine and the mayor decides about Art Walk. Ongoing maintenance of that size is going to have a price tag that we would need to think about.
I just want to throw in there that that's not any different than all the other public art in the city. So I think in general, with the plan and with our kind of big picture thinking, we just need to think about that for all public artwork, right? It's not just Art Walk with that, but I think Art Walk is kind of a easy kind of first case study or test for us because it's kind of at a dire point, right? Where as a city, we need to figure it out.
Yeah, and Heather, I don't know where you went with the conversation that we've had regarding whether we should look at the Art Walk maintenance needs just as sort of its own thing, or if we should look at a larger. Sorry, there's something in the background somewhere. Whether we should look at the maintenance of all of the artwork and try to come up with a strategy and budget for some of that. So that was one thing that we were originally thinking in DES, that we should do an Art Walk maintenance strategy, and then maybe we thought maybe we need to expand it and have it be something that's larger.
Annette,
I did mention that, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Annette, did we ever have a conversation with RICF about setting up a fund with the city where we could invest the money that we're setting aside for maintenance so we can have it into the future?
There was a discussion about it a while back. I'd have to look back at my notes if there was. I feel like there's some technical thing, some legality
I'm
that
sure
would make
there
it a
is, but
challenge. Yeah, that's what's coming to mind.
That's
But
never easy.
yeah, but I could look into it again to double check.
I mean, I don't quite remember. I think it had something to do with the fact that this was state money and our government money or something, and
Yeah,
there was a kind of a no-no or something, I don't know, that
Yeah.
Can't really put that into a private or what,
Mhm.
yeah. But I don't know, there may be some ways around.
Yeah, I can
There may
ask
be some
again.
ways
I
around.
know it came up, and I did raise the question, and yeah, there was something that would make it challenging, but let me go back
But
and
it's
get
worth
that
looking
info.
into and
Yeah.
getting us just a definitive
Mhm.
answer.
Yes. And
Oh,
actually, we have a network of other foundations that I can even ask the question if other foundations have done that I can pose that question.
that would be great. Okay, I'm going to move on to some other project ideas. Here are ideas for new projects that came up. A mural on the Zamboni wall at MLK Park. That idea has come up for a couple years now. A mural on the I Heart Rock sign at Parcel 5. Art at one or more bus stops. That's another idea that's come up a few times. And then murals in one or more overpasses. The challenge of overpasses, of course, is a lot are owned at least or maintained by a rail company or the state. So I'm trying to figure out if there are any that would be a little simplified in terms of being solely city managed. Yeah. So comments, questions about these projects?
I don't, but can we take a second to say hi to Derek and Antonetta because they just joined us?
Yes. Hello, Derek and Antonietta. Derek, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Derek Lucas from Jazz 90.1 WGMC. Pleased to meet everybody.
Thank you. Antonietta, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Antonetta. This is my name sign. You guys want to try it? My name sign? Like this? Yeah. And why do you think that's my name sign? Yeah, that. So I'm part of the deaf community, and I represent the deaf people in this group. So I'm a professional teacher and also
Actor and performer.
actor and performer. I'm a ballerina.
Goddess.
Oh, no.
No, my production company is Ballerina Goddess Entertainment. I will go ahead and come. Thank you. So I am a deaf performer. I've performed with Thomas Warfield for many years. So it's been great having these meetings to meet with you guys. I've been on the committee for about 3 years, 4 years now. I have no idea how long. So thank you for having me, and thank you, Miss Chestnut, for allowing us to introduce yourselves.
Great, thank you. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to go to the next slide, which is the last slide of CAP project ideas, and then we can kind of wrap up any feedback, and then I want to make sure we have plenty of time to brainstorm new project ideas with you all. So let's go ahead and do that. There were a couple general ideas that surfaced at the CAP meeting. One is kind of the broad category of interactive or functional art, and certainly that has been an ongoing theme as well that has come up. I think the bus stop art idea is related to that, just a sense of wanting to create art in unexpected or everyday places that people can either interact with directly or just that it's part of their everyday. And then the idea of a playful water feature also came up. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so we can all see each other's faces better. And let's wrap up any feedback, questions, comments you have about those project ideas before we launch into more brainstorming. Does anyone have any questions or comments about those ideas? Maybe everyone's excited to brainstorm other project ideas. Yes, maybe.
Do we have survey data? Do we ask the public what they're interested in places that are serving the communities that this percent for the arts is all about?
So we have, we did in the Arts and Culture Plan survey, we asked some questions about that. So we'll have that information very soon. Blue, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, and also really just seconding that sentiment from Hillary that I just feel like we should be tasked maybe specifically if that has to come from us at AC3 as community connections if we should be tasked with gathering input and ideas from the community, then I think we should be more clear about that. Seems like it's really missing piece of this process.
Yeah, we actually we have the survey data on a specific question or two that we can actually share with you all to help inform the discussion. We can do that.
Well, I know we're chit-chatting, or I'm trying to chit-chat here about ideas, project ideas, but of course, an R or something will go out, right? And then people will, say, I need money for such and such, whatever. They've got an idea, or whatever, right? Or are we?
Well,
Or that's the exclude.
I think what we could do along that vein is provide some flexibility on either theme or location, to make sure that when the RFP goes out, it winds up in the neighborhoods that need it the most. Then maybe we weight the responses to the RFP for targeted neighborhoods.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good idea. I mean, I guess I can bring up one. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be talking about this or not, but I'm pretty good at like saying the stuff I'm not supposed to say. So there is a project that's sort of down the road already, being chatted about, which is the William Warfield Music Interactive Park, which is sort of interactive musical instruments. That'll be in the Joseph Avenue area. I think that's this chat right now. So that's one idea about the interactive thing. I think one of the pieces I want to make sure happens with that is having space for performances, so that there's outdoor, performance space. And in that part of the city, there isn't a lot of this happening. And so I think that's a big plus, I think, to something that needs to so that's one project that I know about anyway, that's on the horizon.
Hey, Thomas, is that connected any way, shape, or form? Is that discussion happening in any way, shape, or form with the Civil Rights Park design that's
No,
coming down
it's
the pipe?
separate. I think
Okay.
those are two separate things, although I wouldn't mind if they were, you mean with the
I think it could,
Franklin.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because actually there's some family connections with those two
hmm
families, and so it might be that's actually, well, I hadn't thought of that, but that's actually a wonderful idea,
Well,
and maybe
I'm gonna plug it right now. So you and the rest of the William Warfield team fill out the survey and suggest that, please. Okay. Thank you.
Sean,
It's on the city
that's a
website. It's at
that would
Baden
be a
Park.
Baden
That is
Park,
correct.
right? Yeah,
Yep,
and
that is
Thomas, do
Baden
you
Park.
know if it might be too early on in those discussions, but for that installation of those pieces, are they thinking about any public land for that, or is it going to be
yeah,
on
oh
private?
yeah, actually the city's already okayed this, I think. um and they've already suggested where it should happen, near the MLK school. There's like a little playground there, and then there's some other land there that we
Yep,
went to
that's
look
all
at.
part of that's all part of that's all part of the
Is that,
civil
oh,
rights
that's
area.
where the
Yep.
Franklin is?
I think,
Oh,
no,
okay,
I
then I
think
guess we're all on the same page. Yeah, I guess
it's,
there's different
You said
discussions going
you
on,
said
but
oh you said school 9 or 22. Sorry.
I think it's,
uh
we were,
Number 9,
Number
nine.
9. Sorry.
Trenton and Pamela Jackson Rec Center.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
got it.
thank you.
Got it.
Thank you. Yeah,
Got it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But
Thank
I'll
you.
look into that, Sean. Thank you.
So I just wanted to share, this was the results of the survey questions specific to what people would like to see more of in their community.
This is super helpful.
So thank you for this, Heather. I just wanted to chime in real quickly and maybe add a little more texture to some of what I'm hearing and some of what I've heard in the community. My sense is that we should be kind of shepherding the public's ideas in the most straightforward and simple manner into a funding channel, into a funding mechanism. So for me, this answers it so much so that anything we do going forward shouldn't be overly specific, but it should address these. It should allow for artists or organizations to apply and address these high percentage items here. And along those lines, I would just sort of reiterate what I've tried to express before, that I think we should always be trying to simplify processes and procedures and create ongoing mechanisms that can be repeated, because I think a lot of us arts administrators know that it really takes multiple years sometimes to get the community to fully understand, say, Arts Bloom, how it works, what rhythm it's on. And if we and or the CAT team are like constantly redesigning things, we can be playing a little bit of whack-a-mole. I think we should be like double checking that what we're already doing and maybe repeating is satisfying the community's needs and wants.
That's great. And I do think that there's a longer term question of how we kind of keep the pulse of what people want to see in their community. I think that there's the exciting potential of an arts commission creating like a regular public hearing process for public art, which will enable, I think, more broader community input, hopefully. But there's still that question of how we kind of keep the pulse on that moving forward, right? We have an idea right now, but 2, 3, 5 years from now, how are we engaging with people to keep up to date on that?
Well, one of the, oh, sorry, go ahead. Who was that?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Heather, I know you mentioned that the city was working on creating a map of all of the public art throughout the city. I think once that's complete, that would be really helpful to use to be able to figure out the at-need areas where there is no public art. And then it kind of seems to make simple sense that through that survey, we know the types of public art that people want to see, and then figure out where they don't have those.
Yeah, we're trying to expand the map of city-owned public art to include public art on private property, because we believe that that's an important part of the picture as well. Not just for, for the purpose of also kind of guiding people to where there is public art or publicly accessible art, but also from an equity standpoint, right? Because it's not just city-owned public art out there, there's privately owned public art. So we want to take that into consideration too in our assessment of where there should be increased public art access.
I also wonder if, because it was also mentioned that the repair budget can't be spent on things like wall therapy murals because they're on private property. I wonder if there's a way, maybe even just through a simple MOA, to sign over the title of ownership of those murals to the city, where the city won't own the building itself, but the city would own the mural, and be able to decide whether or not the mural gets removed or repaired. That's just a thought to spitball out there.
I'm sure Johanna has thoughts on this, but the main issue, Justin, with as I understand it, and again, Johanna can chime in here, but the main issue with spending public money on an artwork that's part of a private property, even if we owned it, it's considered a gift to the property owner because in some way it's going to increase their property value. So
I've taught you well.
Thank you.
That's primarily the issue.
Well, thanks for educating me on that too.
Shawnee, did you have something?
I was just gonna say I'm actively navigating this particular instance of navigating maintenance on a mural right now. Particularly about what we're allowed to do because it is a privately owned building. Um, a lot of that is gonna be, on the building owner because of that exact thing of them being the owner of that space and that physical artwork. We're currently navigating, even with contracts, that work that was supposed to be done not being done and having to now navigate maintenance afterwards. So like knowing that the maintenance starts before the mural even goes up is kind of a big starting point for where we can dive in with that, I think.
Yeah.
I have another question about the maintenance dollars in that, is there a place in which any funding that this committee recommends also has an ongoing, I mean, I want it to be an endowment, but it's some sort of an ongoing maintenance fund, because when you walk into a community and do something beautifully shiny and new and then don't ever go back, and it, 10 years from now, it looks shabby and somebody says, wait a minute, the city said they cared about us for a minute.
That's what I was asking Annette about.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I know, I
I
think
just
I
wanna-
remember why that's a challenge, but I'm going to say we can have a follow-up meeting with the co-chairs and Heather and Kevin and bring that information back. But I think the challenge is that with an endowed fund, the amount of, call it spendable, but the amount of funding that you would have annually might not be enough to keep up with the maintenance. I think that was part of the challenge when this idea was raised before, but like I said, we can have a follow-up discussion and see if it's still worth pursuing.
And I was just gonna say, Hillary, that the AC3, we made the commitment to set aside an amount equal to 10% of whatever we've spent in capital. So we have that kind of internally in our own percent for the arts budget.
And that sort of continues in perpetuity.
Yes, there's a budget challenge, and that budget folks, this is gonna get in the weeds, but
Sorry.
budget, oh no, it's good. It's good for you all to know this. Budget folks let us know that whether a project to maintain it or improve it needs capital funding versus operating funding, it's a project by project situation. So we, in the nature of operating versus capital, we have to set aside it as capital because capital rolls over. If we tried to set aside any maintenance funding and as operating funding, we would lose it after a year if we didn't spend it. And so we're, what we're earmarking is capital funding. If we decided to improve or maintain something and internally budget folks and law department said this is actually would require operating funding, then we would have to kind of do a swap, where we like took next fiscal year's funding so that we could mark it as operating and then replace that with capital funding that we'd set aside for maintenance before. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
Again, that's kind of in the weeds, but it only came up in the last few months, and it drove me crazy because, those are the kind of details that just, I don't want those to get in the way of us being able to be nimble and make those decisions and commitments, right? But anyway, so yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
It is
I have
a
a question.
long-term commitment though by the AC3 and CAP.
Quick question, because I am new to the CAT team. Is there like a standardized criteria for how to evaluate whether or not a piece of public art needs repair, the extent to which it needs repair, the cost of repairing it? How does that work? To be able to, is there some?
Welcome to the CAT team where you can help us decide.
Yeah, okay. I would be happy. As far as like mural work, I obviously can evaluate a wall, the problems that may be lurking beneath the paint, and whether or not a mural is worth repairing. Because, and I brought this up at the last CAT team meeting, I think like putting money towards the repair of public art, especially murals, it's really important to assess why the mural is failing or the paint that's on an art walk piece or what have you. Because if the original prep job was botched, then repainting it again is not going to be a solution to it. you need to remove all of that paint. You need to prep the surface in the right way and then repaint a mural on it. Maybe not even necessarily the same mural. It could be a new piece of public art to get people in that community excited. But yeah, as far as murals, I'd be happy to play a role in that if there are specific sites that we want to look at for repairs of murals on city property. Just let me know.
On behalf of the CAT team and the rest of the city, we are delighted to have somebody with some expertise on that, because in answer to that prior question, do we have any standard way of evaluating what art needs to be repaired, what the extent of the repair or restoration is? No, absolutely not. But at least we have someone for murals now.
Yeah, and I think Justin brings up a really important part. Of course, I don't think we haven't repaired anything yet. So
No, not
I
much.
don't know.
Well, we're
don't have,
doing
you know,
one. We're doing Albert
Yeah.
Paley, I guess.
Oh, right.
Not with
But
Not Paley,
anyway,
not Paley. Oh my gosh.
Wendell
No,
Castle.
Castle. Sorry. We already
I
know.
do think that actually is a discussion we need to have, you know, down the road in the discussion about maintenance. Because yes, there actually will be some things that don't really, after it's had its life, that's it. You know, I mean, some things are like that. We had this issue with those LGBTQ sculptures in front of the forum years ago when they were first painted. They had the wrong paint or something or other. And so, you know, some years later, to get repaired, they had to just take that all off. They had to start over, you know. So yeah, so sometimes that does happen, but that's really great information for us to be thinking about.
We're also hoping that our consultant will come up with some guidance on how to do this, how to do maintenance, how to monitor it, what the process should be. So that's one of the things we're waiting for some help from them.
And I will say too that when we were doing the work on the public art and culture investment map and then kind of transitioning out to the public art map, when we were doing field work and taking pictures, we were trying to create a system where we could kind of log what condition it was in generally, and then take detailed pictures of if there was damage on it. We didn't get a complete picture that way, but that's kind of why when talking to Ellen was mentioning earlier, when we were thinking about, well, in order to get to an understanding of what Art Walk needs, we actually might have to pay money to do an assessment of what maintenance needs the Art Walk pieces have. But then we were thinking, well, how much money would it take to actually just do that for all public art in the city? So we're kind of thinking about that. Yeah.
One thing that helped us, which, you know, is not always going to be the case, but the artist actually was still around. So we could have the artist kind of go with us and assess that happened with all the bus things, I think. And also the thing in the Susan B. Anthony Square, I think Pepsi also did a, you know, retouching or whatever that is. So having the artists, even having the artist input, maybe when some new thing is created on sort of maintenance, that might be helpful to have that in record, you know, have some kind of record of that.
Yeah.
May I add
Something that
something?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Are you guys able to hear me? I'm currently walking on campus, so I just want to make sure you can hear me. Perfect. I don't know because I can't hear, so I always use that joke. Okay. So I had to go back to your question, Heather, about how we can keep folks updated for the new current generation or the people that come forward. I just had the idea of, you know, deafblind and blind people, how they can actually view these murals. But it doesn't just benefit the blind population. I feel like it would benefit everyone with the question that you're asking, because the thing was having a picture of a mural on these maps, and maybe if someone would be able to update the map with the most recent picture of the mural, having a picture of an artist and explaining what the mural about, because the deafblind can, or not just deafblind, but anybody can, you know, maybe go on a website, or maybe there's a QR code and they see what this mural is about and they read it on their phone. So that way it helps other people with
Frederick Douglass or Frederica Douglass, we're keeping that memory in a cloud somewhere and being able to show to the public. So I don't know if that's a little idea for you guys.
I think that's great. With the idea of the public map, one of the ideas was to have it be where people could update it, could let us know what artworks are missing and give us more information on some artworks. And so we're already developing it to have some kind of interactivity. So I think, yeah, I think that's great. I want to visit
Heather, real
the
quick, I
chat.
just
Oh,
want
yeah.
to address a question that Amanda put in the chat regarding climate change messaging or environmental justice messaging or anything like that, because we had talked about that and I saw the fleet idea was in your PowerPoint. Is that environmental services? Because it's like the perfect marriage of messaging and artwork. If that was going to be part of the artwork for the fleet, because I think it's like I said, the perfect synergy.
We're trying to figure out, we're trying to put together the right information for our operations and maintenance folks to get them on board. Because I think there's a lot of concerns around either hand painting or wraps on vehicles and what that means. So Prathíksha has really led on a lot of research and talking to other vehicle maintenance folks in other cities. Justin has actually been involved in a hand painting vehicle project. So we're kind of in early stages right now internally and getting people on board. But we're really excited for the idea of what kinds of themes and messaging we can kind of loop into it, because I agree there's quite a few, and I know that you had mentioned that before for this particular project. Yeah, we'll keep you in the loop on the discussion and keep your fingers crossed that we can get everyone on board internally on it. Yay.
Another thought on the potential theme or location for future money. Kind of want to go back to something that Blue was talking about, and you brought this up quite a bit, Blue, about kind of making sure we have a good deal of flexibility in what we're requesting and to make a lot of space for artists to respond. So I was thinking in my head, like, what is the most flexible, broadest version of that for an RFP for capital public art in the future, to just throw out there and see, is this too broad? Would we want to get more focused? But basically, the broadest version would be asking artists to propose installations on any public property, whether it be rec centers, libraries, schools, the public right-of-way, parks, etc. But the amount of the focus that we would ask of them would be to look at that list that Heather shared earlier and try and focus on the types of public art that were towards the top of that list. And then to also look at the map that shows where past investments have taken place and try to focus proposals into the areas where there's nothing on the map. So that's just like a very broad call for art to throw out there as a sort of a straw man idea. Does that feel too broad? Would you want to get more specific in terms of location or theme or type of art? Speaking to kind of Blue's point about flexibility.
I for one really appreciate you summarizing it that way, Kevin, because I think that sometimes it's very easy for us to be slipping into kind of a curator's role, and that's really not our job here. That is my job elsewhere, but I'm just saying, like, with this hat on here and with all of us, we're not here to do that. We shouldn't be designing with aesthetics or themes or topics in mind. We should be designing broad, open containers that the artists and the curators and the organizations can fill. So I appreciate the way you phrased that, and I think that the equity piece that Amanda's mentioning, obviously everything filters through that. I think we're all in agreement on that. Encouraging artists to prioritize those places where public art investment has not yet happened is first and foremost.
And I think that's kind of what we did with the first arts round of Arts Bloom funding, and I would say that was successful. I know that Locus Focus is still working on completion. We've had some snags with the cost of construction, but otherwise I think that was really good. We got really good applications for really interesting ideas and projects in places that really needed it.
Yeah, so we could do a similar call for art that way. Like I know in interest of time, I want to respect everyone's time. I looked through the chat and I think folks were having good conversations. I do want to mention that I just remembered the city is going to be working on a climate action plan soon. And so that's another tie-in to that theme or topic, which could be great. Yes. Okay, it's 2:01. Any last thoughts or comments? Keep in mind, you can follow up via email with me. And in addition, we'll be coming back. We'll be meeting again in October to really wrap up this conversation.
Have we had any, sorry, Heather, just one
no
last
problem.
thing. It's
No
not really
problem.
on the agenda here, but it's so germane to this committee and the CAT. Have we had any conversations about the city logo sculpture process and commission and that whole thing? Has that been addressed here at all in this committee?
Has what been addressed? What do you mean? Like
Well,
has
was
just
there,
an update on it?
I mean, not only an update on it, but just like how it came to be. I think there's a lot of confusion in the community about how such a big sculpture investment was, made, prioritized. How was it planned? Who ran it? People keep asking Amanda and I about AC3's involvement with it, and
Yeah, I've gotten a
we
lot of
haven't had
questions
any as far
about
as I remember.
Yeah.
who's getting the money and why, and I don't know those answers.
Well, okay, so that's just, I mean, I think you know that's not percent for the arts funding, but Ellen from DES, who's on this call, I don't know, Ellen, if you want to mention that we could, Ellen could talk about it maybe at the next meeting.
Sure.
Does that sound good? Ellen? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay. There was one more thing I was gonna, oh my God, my
Also,
wheels are turning.
I wanted to ask, are we with the 50th anniversary of the logo, is there anything that AC3 and this team should be working on, what the city's doing? I know they're doing some stuff. Are we engaged in this? Will this team be engaged in that committee?
I don't know. I think I kind of feel like Ellen and maybe even Blue know a little bit more than city planning does about, because I think Blue is involved. Isn't Roco doing something as part of City Mark stuff?
No, the city's actually doing something. I think its communications might need to be involved in this conversation, but the city itself, they talked about, I don't know how.
Right. Okay.
Mission some work from people and various other things. So I just was curious if it was funneling to you and Kev.
No, we basically we're percent for the arts and we talk about percent for the arts. And when we're talking to Cat, we're mostly talking about percent for the arts. So we don't really have any direct involvement in other projects unless we're participating potentially on like a review panel or something like that. Yeah. There was one other thing I was gonna say, but I'll follow up if I think of it. And I don't look at. Oh, I know what it was. Amanda wrote about Arts Bloom and supporting kind of new emerging projects and the importance of that. And I think Arts Bloom continues to do that because it's small funding amounts. And I think that with this team, we can kind of dream up ways that we're doing that on the capital side too, making sure that we're building capacity for new and emerging artists that maybe don't necessarily have the experience to do large capital projects that other artists do. So I think you all can kind of help us brainstorm that as we're talking about specific calls for art. That's it. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. And feel free to follow up with me via email if you think of any other things. And otherwise, we'll see you and talk to you.